My name is Stephanie Pappas, and I'm the Chief Financial Officer and Director of Administration here at Roofer Supply.
My name is George Pappas, and I am the President of Pappas Builder Supply, a transportation company.
I'm John Pappas, and I'm Director of Operations for both companies.
And I'm Dino Pappas, the President of Roofer Supply.
So in the late 60s, our father had this property, and a tenant came to him to build a building for him. He wanted to open a roofing distributorship, and he wanted to sell roofing from this property, and so our father built the building that we're currently sitting in, and he leased to the gentleman, and the original name of the business was Roofer Supply. This gentleman went out of business a short time later, and so our father, Steve Pappas, and Fred Kurtz opened up PK Wholesale Roofing Supply. Stood for Pappas Kurtz, where they got the PK from. And they operated that until the late 70s, at which time they sold, and they sold to a company and signed a 15-year lease for them. And fast forward 15 years from then, in 1994, the beginning of 94, their lease was up. We did not release to them. Our brother Dino was integral in the business through those 15 years of being involved in roofing, and many people thought that our father still owned it. And so in 94 we did not release. We opened up Roofer Supply, and now here it is 20 years later. So
I started working for PK Wholesale in 1978 as I was finishing college, and we had all kind of worked in and out of the business in summers and so forth whenever we were available. We were available. But I started working there, and I kind of joked with the guy. I was the first one to at least earn a wage, because we would just work whenever needed. So continued working there. I moved up in responsibilities through 1993, which in '94 is when I left the company and we started Roofer Supply. Yeah, I started out customer service. Of course, we didn't call it customer service in those days. It was, I was working in the counter sales. Prior to that, I had worked in the warehouse, in deliveries, but then I started working in the office and did purchasing, and then just continued to move up. And I think need to remember that the roofing industry, the roofing distributor industry, was a lot smaller, a lot less sophisticated maybe than it is today, and we didn't have very many folks in the office. So we all wore many hats. Now we still do, but it was even smaller back then. And so I worked from counter sales, purchasing, and then eventually became the manager, salesman, manager of the branch, and then I eventually managed all 3 locations that we had in those days.
So when I was finishing up my MBA in '97, when roofers, like George says, was growing, and the needs started changing of the company. We were now having more employees. We started having needs when it came to, human resources issues and just more administrative help. Dino had been here by himself for those years running the company with good people, but we realized we had an imbalance of ownership presence. So that's when I transitioned over, and that's when we started developing. It wasn't until 1999 that we developed a bona fide human resource department. But the numbers of employees were growing to a place that we realized that we needed that additional support, and so that's primarily one of the reasons I transitioned over, and then shortly John came over as well. And since then it's given us a lot more balance. I think one of the other things that John and George both alluded to was just the pay at the company, and I think one of the things that was very interesting about Dad, that even though he was a traditional Greek man, he was very forward-thinking in a lot of ways. And he was the one who was instrumental when it came to compensation. He talked a lot about equality based on ownership rather than if somebody...
Duties.
Rather than duties or needs. And it was very forward-thinking of him, I think, when he said, look,
you all do the same.
You all do, you all carry different responsibilities, but similar loads. And so it's important that pay be equitable and fair across the board. So we started changing our pay structure, and I think that's something that we all carry forward today in our in how we look at our own businesses and how we handle our employees.
Well, when we started the business, we had probably, I don't know, 8 or 9?
10, yeah.
Maybe 10. And we started out pretty small, you can imagine. And we started 2 branches at the same time, Ogden and Salt Lake. And we had a handful of folks that I mostly had worked with through my days with the other company, and they took a leap of faith as well to join us, and they had the desire to do so and the ambition to roll up their sleeves and help us start this new company and be a part of it. And our job at that time, and when you ask how our job might have changed, I mean, our small crew of 8 or 9 or 10 folks did everything. You can imagine the number of hats we all had to wear. We were everything from the sales department to the delivery department to the ordering, the administrative. It was whatever it took. And we were developing our organization kind of as we went along, kind of like what Stephanie said. It took us a long time to have a really more of an organization as opposed to just kind of what might have seemed like a chaotic environment, but it was because everybody was willing to do whatever it took every day. And I think that also is a benefit to us, and to remember that that's also part of what makes it strong, even today, is the ability and the willingness of our people to kind of almost do whatever it takes.
We had a Linden in
Linden came next.
1999.
Linden in 99.
And we stayed with those 3 for quite a while, and then finally in 2006,
I think so, 2006.
I think in 2006,
in Cedar.
we opened up in Cedar. Actually, we bought out a person who was a customer of ours who was wanting to retire, so we took over his entity in 2006, and then in 2010 we opened up in St. George.
When we talk about the 5 locations too, I think that one thing we're pretty proud of is the fact that of the 5 locations, and we own our facilities, but of the 5 locations, we built 4 of them. Our family, in one way or another, we built the facility for our kind of business. We rebuilt our Ogden facility. We built Linden. We've now rebuilt, or we've built a brand spanking new one in Cedar City, Utah, which is we just opened back in October. And then our St. George facility, we didn't actually build, but it was a new distribution facility that we purchased that was available, and it does suit our needs very well.
So that's an interesting story, because today, in 5 branches, we actually have fewer employees than we did in 3 branches back in 2008 and 2009, before the economy...
The recession.
The economy took a hit. So we've become much more efficient. Today we're operating at about 85 employees, a couple of part-time, and we're doing more business than we ever did before, much more efficiently.